Hello farmers and aspiring farmers. Thank you for tuning into yet another informative edition of your program. This is Agricultural New Directions, Agribusiness in support of Vision 2030. Now today we are still looking at livestock issues, the livestock industry right here in Zimbabwe. You would find that most of our Zimbabwean farmers, be it commercial farmers or smallholder farmers, take pride in their wealth in the form of cattle. We have different breeds and also organizations that are working with different farmers throughout the geographical locations of our country to ensure that wealth in the form of cattle is protected. Now, to discuss this and more in the livestock industry, I have taken the liberty of inviting Dr. Mario Beffa. He is the General Manager of the Zimbabwe Head Book. Dr. Beffa, thank you for joining us today.
It's only my pleasure, and thank you for the opportunity.
Yes. Dr. Beffa, I'd like to pose a question to you. I understand that our audience is very much tuned in and interested in knowing maybe an overview or a background of the Zimbabwe Head Book. How did it come about?
Thank you, Watsanai. So very briefly, the Zimbabwe Herd Book was established in 1980 when we gained independence. In fact, it was one of the first Act of Parliaments to be passed, giving or setting up a body to be the registering authority for the purebred industry, the purebred livestock industry.
Okay.
So from that Act of Parliament, we set up the Zimbabwe Herd Book, and the Zimbabwe Herd Book is the umbrella organization representing the stud or pedigree industry in the country.
What were your objectives? What were you seeking to attain in the livestock industry?
Thank you very much, Watsanai. So the stud industry, the pedigree industry, is the seed stock industry. So just as when you think of growing maize, you go and buy seed maize. When you think of doing broiler chickens, you go and buy broiler day-old chicks. So if you're doing livestock production and you're looking for new genetics, you go to the stud industries and buy purebred, registered animals. These are animals with a known background, bred by the breeders. So we know when you're buying, let's say, a Brahman, a stud Brahman, it comes with a history. It comes with a genetic, a pedigree history, its lineage, its breeding, but also there's been some selection for performance. So you're buying an animal with a little more assurance on how it's going to produce. Just like when you buy seed maize, you're buying seed maize with some idea on how that variety is going to perform. This is exactly the same in the stud industry. So we are we are providing the registering authority for all the breed societies. They look after their own societies, promote their own breeds. We maintain the database for them, and we provide that third-party guarantee as to the background of these animals, so that you, the commercial buyer or pedigree buyer, when you're buying an animal, you're buying it with some degree of confidence of what it is and how it's going to perform.
Thank you so much for that. Looking at maybe some of the breeds that are common or rampant, or those that have desired characteristics for our Zimbabwean farmers, what are those breeds?
Thank you, Watsanai. So we are very fortunate in this country. Yes, we've been through some serious hardships, but right now we have got 222 registered stud breeders representing 18 breeds, 1 sheep, Dorper, 2 goat, the Kalahari Red and the Boer goat, and 1 dairy, the Ayrshire, and the balance being the beef. Of the beef, the Brahman is the most predominant, followed very closely by the Boran. Very exciting. This is a East African breed that is doing very well and growing very quickly. A very strong third contender is your Thuli. That's an indigenous breed. We have a very strong component of enthusiastic breeders promoting the Thuli. The other breeds that are quite strong and well represented, Beefmaster, Simmental, Simbra. Our other indigenous breeds, Mashona and Corny, are also in the mix. There's quite a lot of breeds that are only represented by 1 or 2 breeders. That is of some concern. But be that as it may, we do have a very nice mix of breeds available to the commercial producer to make some very interesting choices on what breeds to use to meet his breeding objectives.
There are pitfalls in every business. What are those pitfalls that you might want to highlight to our audience? Some are seeking to get into livestock production, but they don't understand the threats that might be there.
Thank you. Very, very important. I always like to think of livestock production as a three-legged stool. Okay? Nutrition, health, genetics. And then I also like to think of a management as a strap holding those three legs together.
Yes.
Okay? That is what makes sound livestock production. If you don't have management, if the strap's not there, the stool's going to collapse. If one of the legs, if nutrition, health, or genetics is not there, then the stool falls over. So it's really, really important when we go into livestock production to make sure all three legs are strong. We, in the Zimbabwe herd book, we are focusing on the genetic leg. I'm not saying nutrition and health are not important, but our focus is on genetics. But it's more important than just genetics. It's making sure you have the right genetics, the right mix for your production circumstance.
Yes.
That is very, very key. Now, one pitfall that we have seen time and time again, people go for big. In their mind, bigger is better. Now, I want to say right out at the front now, there is no best breed.
Yes.
But certain breeds, certain breed combinations are better suited to certain production environments. What is your health? What is your nutrition? What is your management? Find the right genetic package that goes into that.
Okay.
So one, avoid going for size. Think very carefully on what is going to bring you money. What brings you money? The animal that's going to survive, number one.
Yes.
If it dies, that's not much use. Two, it must reproduce in your environment. Then we can talk about growth, carcass characteristics, and things like that. But get survival, get fertility right, and you are 90% of the way to achieving your objective.
Finally, as we close this segment, Dr. Beffa, I want us to look at issues surrounding investment. In terms of investment, is it a long-term investment or a short-term investment?
When you buy a bull, you need to think very carefully, okay? And a lot of people get caught up in the hype of the day and just buy. Understand, I buy a bull today, I may mate him to some cows at the end of this year. Those cows, if he's fertile and he does his job, may calve end of next year.
Yeah.
So I'm only going to start to see something end of next year, but that's a calf. I'm only going to wean that calf year 2. I'm only going to market that calf year 3 or mate with it. If I'm buying a bull to replace my females, I'm mating his heifers in year 3 to get progeny in year 4. Okay? So this is very long term. And what is really, really important is the impact of a bull. Understand the other thing is a bull is 50% of your calf crop. Okay? 50% of the genetics is your next calf crop. Okay? So the impact a bull has on your herd over 3 generations, the bulls that you bought make up 85%, 87% of the herd. Okay? All right. So that's number one. Your bull has a dramatic impact on your herd. Number 2, as I mentioned, the bull, you're only starting to see the performance of his daughters 5, 6 years from now. So a good decision with you, the financial decision you make today, you'll only start harvesting in year 6, 7, and will be with you for 13, 15 years. So a good decision today will be with you for 15 years. A bad decision today will be with you for the next 15 years.
Yes.
So it's really, really important that you look at the impact of this investment.
Thank you so much, Dr. Beffa, for such a detailed presentation. On that note, viewers, we've come to the end of the first segment. We're going to go on a short commercial break. We'll be right back with this and more in the second segment. Stay tuned. farmers for staying tuned to Agricultural New Directions, Agribusiness in support of Vision 2030. Today we are looking at the livestock industry right here in Zimbabwe, and I am joined by Dr. Mario Beffa. He is the General Manager of the Zimbabwe Headbook. Now, viewers, we encourage you to be a part of these conversations. Feel free to get in touch with the producer, Wadzanai Manyore, so 0772-807-506. Alternatively, you can like our Facebook page, Agribusiness with Wadzanai, make a follow-up on this episode and more, and leave your comments and suggestions. They are most welcome to us on our YouTube channel, Agribusiness with Wadzanai. We are also now available on X, formerly known as Twitter. It's at Agribusiness 110. This is where most of our discussions do take place. Now, earlier on, going to the break, I was talking to Dr. Beffa here. We're just looking at maybe how a farmer can ensure that he thrives and makes a living off of livestock production. Is it short-term investment? Is it a long-term investment? Dr. Beffa, we are here in the second segment. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you, Wansana.
Looking at the membership, you alluded to the fact that you are sort of like the umbrella of the various societies that exist within our livestock industry. I want us to talk about what does it take to a member of the Zimbabwe Headbook, or just highlights on how a person can join an association.
Thank you, Wansana. So the first thing is to be interested in a specific breed. Is it sheep, cattle, goats? And once you've identified your breed, register with the society, join the society. And then if you are interested in being a stud breeder, going a next step, then through your society you register with the herd book. As I said earlier, the herd book is really the registrar general for the stud industry. Okay. We collect all the information, the individual, its parentage, and so on. But the society looks after promoting the breed, and we just provide the backup service to the society.
What are some of the advantages that come with being registered with these organizations?
Well, Wadzanai, as I mentioned earlier, this is all about genetics, genetic improvement. So there's two: you can either be a commercial person and buying good animals and breeding with them, or you can be a stud breeder leading the way with top genetics to supply to the commercial industry and influencing the direction of the industry in the way that it's going to go. So the advantages are you're working with a breed, you're working with your society, and you come up with common goals on how to promote your breed. What's special about your breed? What can I do to promote it? How can I improve its sales? How can I improve the outreach and the impact of that breed in the commercial industry?
The associations at times will speak highly of the breed that they represent, which is a good thing. It's marketing at the end of the day.
Of course.
But in your perspective as the general manager of the Zimbabwe Headbook, what are some of the desired characteristics you would want to emphasize or highlight to that Zimbabwean farmer who wants to get into livestock production?
Thank you, Wadzanai. So as I mentioned before, it's really, really critical to match the genetics to your production environment. Yeah. You've got two choices. You can change the environment to suit the genetics, but that can be very expensive, or you can select the genotype that is best adapted to your environment. And there's the key word, adapted. What do we mean by adapted? So adapted is an animal that's going to survive. Number one, grow and reproduce in that environment. So to many of our new breeders, think carefully about your selection. Like I said, it's a three-legged stool. Make sure all three legs are strong, and look at adaptation. And as I alluded to earlier, bigger is not necessarily better. If you've got constraints, especially nutrition, look at a smaller animal. A smaller animal is better able to maintain its condition, especially in the dry season. The biggest problem we have production in this country is the dry season. Animals lose condition, and people do not appreciate the need to stop the loss of condition. And to do that, you have to feed. A bigger animal, you need to feed more. I'm not saying it's not productive, it's not efficient, but do you have the resources to put in extra feed? If you don't, think carefully. Think of buying an animal that is going to be less hard to maintain its condition throughout the dry season. You want that animal to come out of the dry season in reasonable condition, because a cow must breed a calf every year. To do so, it must come out of the dry season in reasonable condition.
Very true.
If it's skin and bones, it's going to take months to recover, and you are not going to get a calf every year. So number one, fertility. Push for fertility, push for calf a year, and try and find that breed that is going to help you to get a calf per year.
Dr. Beffa, nowadays everyone is looking to make money, and at times farmers fall prey or victim to rent seekers. Everyone is masquerading as an expert in artificial insemination. They just say, I'm a student who studied this. Your sentiments, your views on that, or some of the problems that we are creating ourselves as Zimbabwean livestock farmers by just doing artificial insemination randomly. You just bring someone who says, I can do this, I'm selling semen, I have semen. Someone advertises on Facebook or on WhatsApp or in groups, I have semen, I can do it for you. Your sentiments, your views, the dangers of getting into such practices.
Okay, well, artificial insemination's been with us for many years. I think it was 1950s. Hugely successful in, a bull can only mate with 30 cows, but some of the top US bulls, dairy bulls, are being inseminated to 200,000 cows a year. So it's a very powerful way of spreading the impact of a bull. But the dangers are, where did your semen come from?
Yes.
Has it been collected under hygienic conditions? By hygienic, do we know that that animal was free of diseases?
Yeah.
Okay? And there are very strict rules in this country governing semen. It should have been captured or obtained under quarantine conditions to ensure that that animal was healthy and we're not going to spread diseases. AI or semen is a very powerful way to spread genetics, but we can also spread diseases. So number one, the quality of the semen, has it been captured under or collected under quarantine conditions? Number two, just because you got semen, so what? What breed? What characteristics of that breed? How can I get some, telling me it's a Brahmin, okay. Is it a big Brahmin, small Brahmin, white Brahmin, red Brahmin? What are some of the productive characteristics of that? So give me a little bit more. So that to me is the danger, is understand what's in the semen package. Otherwise, yes, it's much less risk than buying a bull that can die on you. If you've got a small herd, it's going to cost you money to do AI, but it's less than buying a bull. And of course, you don't have to look after the bull, but make sure you adhere to health conditions. The last thing you want is a disease introduced into your herd. And again, I go back to using inappropriate genetics. You use inappropriate genetics, that decision will be with you for the next 20 years.
Thank you so much, Dr. Beffa. On that note, viewers, we've come to the end of the second segment. We're going to go on a short commercial break. We'll be right back with this and more in that third and final segment. Stay tuned. Thank you, Zimbabwe, for staying tuned to Agriculture on New Directions, Agribusiness, in support of Vision 2030. Today, we are looking at the Zimbabwean livestock industry. And to discuss this, I've taken the liberty of inviting Dr. Mario Beffa. He is the General Manager of the Zimbabwe Head Book. Dr. Beffa here was telling us in terms of how artificial insemination can be very effective, but at the same time can be a source of danger or bring in diseases or certain undesired characteristics in your head, which you'll be stuck with for the next 15 to 20 years if you are not wise or vigilant as a livestock farmer. Dr. Beffa, we are here in the final segment. Welcome back.
Thank you very much, Wadanai.
I want us to look at diseases in the livestock industry. We have the January disease, we have foot and mouth, and certain diseases that just come with tick infestation and maybe a lack of proper treatment of the livestock and taking care of them. Talk to us in terms of the diseases, how they are being managed, and if you don't manage them properly, what can that lead to as a Zimbabwean farmer?
Watson, I thank you very much. This is a very, very big point, and the biggest impact, especially the two diseases you mentioned, January, and especially foot and mouth, the big thing is there's quarantine. And a quarantine means limited trade or only direct access to slaughter. This is a huge, huge impact on business. So the first thing is diseases. We all need to be vigilant, we all need to be biosecure, and we all need to be aware of the rules and regulations. There are strict rules and regulations governing movement of animals, and this is to try and protect the national herd. Okay? And foot and mouth is a disaster because straight away we go into quarantines and that affects trade. Theileriosis has been dramatic. The impact of theileriosis or January disease has been dramatic. We are hearing reports of massive wipeouts of stock. And what I understand, I'm not a veterinarian, but what little I understand, you need to dip. You need to be on top of the vector, the brown-eared tick, to control this disease. So it goes back to biosecurity. Speak to your veterinarian, your veterinary officer, understand what your health calendar should look like, and practice what you need to do to keep your herd healthy. The last thing you can afford is losses due to diseases.
Now, Dr. Beffa, looking at our situation right now in our agri industry and even our economy, this 2023-2024 cropping season hasn't been an easy one. We were faced or encountered with the effects, adverse threats of the El Nino-induced drought. How did it impact the livestock industry?
Well, it's a little bit early days yet to know. We certainly had a very strange season. Some of us had very good rains in October, abnormally good rains, but then it was followed by abnormally hot, dry weather until just before Christmas. Hopefully many of us have had good rains since Christmas. We don't know how long that's going to last. I'm hearing that it has impacted. Some people got the good rains, the cows responded well to it. Other people did not get it, and it has affected the ability of the cows to come back on heat, and it's going to affect the ability to calve every year, as we were talking about earlier. So that's the first step. We have had nice rains, certainly in Harare, in the past 3 to 4 weeks. We sincerely hope they continue, because we need, not only do we need good rains at the start of the season, we need good rains in the middle through to the end. The impact, if we don't get continued good rains, then obviously we won't have the grass, and then we're going to look at serious destocking. Let's hope we don't get there, but this is something that every farmer must think about very carefully, monitor his situation very carefully, and as soon as you feel you don't have the grazing capacity to look after your animals, make some wise decisions now before you start losing stock. But we hope and pray for a good season.
Thank you so much, Dr. Beffa. I like that you are the effect of making wise decisions, because these effects or these changes do come with a hard hit on your financial resources as a farmer.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for having with us today.
My pleasure, and thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
From me, your host of the name Manyore, I'm also on Instagram, it's W Manyore, and the crew behind the scenes. Have yourselves a fabulous evening. Thank you for watching.